Welcome to a football show on the 440 Sports Network presented by Sinkers Beverages. In for Braden Gall, Jared Stillman. I would argue the least popular man today on Titans Twitter, Nick Suss, who is with us, of course, for a football show, pushed back from Thursday to a Friday because of last night's big uniform reveal and the moves the Titans continue to make in free agency. Let's, of course, tell all the fine folks about Sinkers Beverages. Tons of options out there where to get your fine craft beverages or your THC drinks, which I like. But go with the local options. Sinkers Beverages, proud supporter of 440 Sports. Braden has a much longer spiel about how much he loves Sinkers Beverages. I love them as well. I just don't know the spiel as well as Braden. He's so great at it. I don't want to ruin any of his eloquence. I just want to tell you that Sinkers Beverages rocks. Nicholas, how are you, sir?
Good. Let's go from that advertisement to a much, much longer advertisement that we witnessed last night. That was
I did not witness it last night. I'm sorry, I have no interest in attending a team pep rally. And I say this as somebody who is a die-hard Tennessee Titans fan. And I know, Suss, you used to be a Titan fan growing up. You have kind of traded that in for your objective journalism, reporter hat. I have not. I still love my football team, but I'm not going to drag my ass to a pep rally so that I can go again and see the uniforms, which I detest not because I don't like the style of the uniform, but I detest the reasoning behind the change to those uniforms. But I'm not going to go to some pep rally so I can walk away and be like, oh, man, thank God we drafted Cam Ward so he could be the center of our pep rally. I'm not interested in that. But tell me about your experience, Sus. How was it?
one of the best parts, and I will immediately pander. I got to meet a lot of people who listen to this show. Thank you for introducing yourself last night, the people who listen to this show. There are many of you who had very sound criticisms of this show. Mostly are like, hey, stop moving so much and stop clicking your mouse so much and you're making it hard to listen. I hear you. I'm not going to change it. Very nice to meet all you guys. It was a interesting event. Please go read the more eloquent version of what I wrote last night because I'm going to butcher it trying to say it out loud. But it was just this feeling of an organization that feels like it has decided what it wants to be. And now it's time to sell people on that. And what it wants to be is strange in a sense of they're trying to tap into regional pride and they're trying to be the Titans of Tennessee, but there are seemingly no signifiers that this team is the Titans, and there are seemingly no signifiers that this team is tied to Tennessee. I think about, there was this 50-piece orchestra that introduced the whole thing, and you see an orchestra, and you're in Nashville, and you have certain expectations. And then the 4-song medley they played to intro the night was Enter Sandman, a metal song from San Francisco, followed by Seven Nation Army, a garage rock song from Detroit, followed by Still Dre, a hip-hop song from Los Angeles, followed by Get Lucky, a techno song by two people from France. No Dolly Parton, no Johnny Cash. They're not playing Ring of Fire. They're not tapping into what they have established as the Titans. They're just saying, we're going to be the fun. We're going to be the party team. And then you bring out Kyle Brandt, and he cuts an 8-minute promo as a wrestling promoter, essentially. And he's yelling about, we're not going to talk about the Cowboys. We're not going to talk about Shitter Sanders. We're going to do the national media's worst nightmare. We're going to have a whole night about the Titans. And people are booing the national media. And people are going in on, yeah, this is about the Titans. This is about us. And they're buying into the KFAB and all of this stuff. And it's super interesting. And then they play the video, and Eddie George is given the big speech to introduce everything, and they play Lose Yourself, which is another song from Detroit. That's 2 Detroit, 0 Nashville. And then they drop a bunch of confetti as Cam and Jeff walk the runway, and Bruno Mars is playing. Again, no Nashville, just party, just fun. And then they hit us with the ad. I don't know if you've seen the ad. I don't know if you watched the father and son commercial that they put out.
I saw it existed. I did not watch it.
Essentially, it is tracking the family dynamic of a dad who had a young son when the Music City Miracle happened. And they track through Titans history up to the point where they have tickets at the new Nissan Stadium, and now the dad's a grandpa and the son has a son of his own. And essentially what the Titans are trying to sell right now. And what I got from last night of seeing 2,500 people, and this was a crew of people who, no disrespect to anyone who was there, I call these custom jersey people. These are fans who feel so central to the existence of the fandom that they need to brand themselves either on their chest or on their back of, this is the kind of fan I am. That's not a hostile crowd by any means. The people there were very supportive. I polled people before the show. I polled people after the show. Scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about all this? The average answer was like 9.5. Everybody was excited. Not taking away the excitement in the room. There were a couple of timid reviews, but for the most part, people were pretty stoked. And the Titans are selling this idea that they are a shared experience. They are something you can do in person. You don't have to be on your phone. You can be with people. You can have this big Nashville party. It doesn't need to be country music. It doesn't need to be hee-haw. It just is. And it reminds me of a review I got sent in from a friend of mine who told me I can name him, but I don't feel like naming him right now because that'd be annoying to me. I don't want to give him too much credit. What he texted me was, the team's uniform history is just do something unique and cool, then do something unique and shitty, then ditch all that uniqueness to make a nostalgia play for people who aren't from Nashville and don't actually care about Nashville, which is a perfect way to tell the story of the city since the 1990s. That feels like a more eloquent way of putting it. The Titans have just generally gotten less Titan to a point that now they are selling an identity of fun, an identity of community, an identity of we over me, which is the patch on the back of the jersey. They're selling we. I don't know if they're selling Titans. And I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but just like if you're playing the psychology of all of this, the thing they're trying to communicate to you is community. The thing they're trying to communicate to you is, you liked these Oilers uniforms, you get these Oiler uniforms, because this is about what you want. This is about selling you joy. That's my takeaway.
So as a Titan fan, what I don't like about these uniforms is I don't like the fact that I feel like I've been in a 30-year marriage with the Tennessee Titans, and the Tennessee Titans are obsessed with their ex-husband who they were married to 30 years ago. That's what it feels like. I feel like a pawn in all of this. Like, I feel like the Adams family doesn't give a shit about Nashville. I feel like they don't give a shit about the last 30 years of Titan football. I mean, I go back to when they moved in 99, and I went to the first game. They played Cincinnati at home. They won by a point on an Al Del Greco field goal. They blocked a punt. They had a great fourth quarter comeback led by Steve McNair. Steve McNair got hurt. I went with my dad to the second game. They played an expansion Cleveland Brown team. They kicked the crap out of them, and I was all in. From that point forward, I was all in. It was my 11th birthday that week. I got an Eddie George jersey before they played Jacksonville and beat Jacksonville on the road with Neil O'Donnell, which was kind of a they've arrived moment in that season. I love the Titans. The Titans. I respect the Oilers. I respect the history of Houston the same way as an Atlanta Brave fan that I respect the history of what the Hank Aaron did in Milwaukee. But at the same time, like, I am a Titan fan. I'm not an Oiler fan. And the Titans can say whatever they want about this rebrand, about we wanted to incorporate the whole state. We wanted to make this about, this is what I believe happened. I believe Amy Adams Strunk got all pissed off by J.J. Watt and Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins talking about how the Texans should wear the Oiler uniforms. That became such a Twitter thing. And so the Titans, when they could, decided that they could wear the Oiler throwbacks, which they did, which did hit on the nostalgia play. And it was nice. But Twitter got super carried away with, oh, the Oiler uniforms are so nice. And Amy loves the Oilers because that's what she grew up with, the same way I grew up with Steve McNair and Eddie George. She grew up with Earl Campbell and Bum Phillips. And so this was the opportunity to go back to being the Oilers without being the Oilers. And they took it. And as a Nashville Titan fan, I feel like I'm being used as a pawn. I feel like I'm being lied to. I feel like the Titans are trying to say, We wanted to incorporate this for the fans. And I feel like they're really doing it because Amy has this vindictive itch to scratch that she wants Houston to know that's my team. And so she's doing, and again, fine, but would you want to be married to somebody who 30 years after they broke up with their ex is still sitting there trying to take shots at him? I wouldn't. So that's how I feel as a fan. And then the pep rally of it all was just so over the top for me. And this is more of a me thing, I think, than a pep rally thing. It's like, for some reason, I felt like social media acted like the Titans won a game last night. And the Titans didn't win a game last night. And Cam Ward is not a franchise quarterback yet. And I mean, they're so desperate for good players that in their uniform shots, they have the punt returner. I mean, that's where they are with how bad their football team is right now. Like, I appreciate Robert Saleh because he looked like he was all business last night. Like he was there because he had to be there. Like, let's get back to work. Let's win some football games. Let's stop taking pictures for Instagram and let's worry about winning some ball games. And so the whole pep rally thing is just a total turnoff to me, but I understand it's not for me. I get it. But when it comes to the rebrand and the Oilers stuff and all I just feel like the history of the Titans, which is 30 years, I just feel like it's been disrespected and discarded.
Yeah, quick caveat for the journalism of it all. We did get to talk to some of the Titans decision makers yesterday, and they were asked directly how much did the Houston Oilers and the Houston Texans play into the decision, and they did deny it. Whether you choose to whether you choose to believe that or not, that is what they said.
Do you believe that?
I am just reporting what was said, Jared.
What do you believe?
I am reporting what was said, Jared.
See, that's what drives me crazy. Is like, again, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And yet, again, the Titans, and you know what? This was actually going to be my lead take today on my show. This is my biggest problem with why I think the Titans are where they are. Because they just won't fucking say it. They just won't tell the truth. If Amy came out today and she said, I grew up with the Houston Oilers. I've always loved those uniforms. My dad always loved those uniforms. And I feel like as we move into our new stadium, I want to go back to that. I'd say fine. Like, at least you're being honest. But instead, the Titans always try to spin these stories to where I can never believe them about anything. And it's like, why can't you just tell the truth? When you fired John Robinson, why couldn't you just tell the truth? You were mad about the A.J. Brown trade. When you fired Mike Vrabel, why could you not just tell the truth? You were mad about him going to Foxborough and playing footsie with Robert Kraft. When you fired Rand Carthon, why could you not just admit the truth that he was incompetent? I mean, again, it's like even when they fired Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker's up there talking about this decision where everybody's saying, yeah, Brinker and Borgonzi wanted to keep him, but Amy Adams Strunk got mad that they got embarrassed in Vegas, so she told them to fire him. Like, why does everything have to be a lie? Or I shouldn't say a lie. Why does everything have to be about winning the narrative? Again, I don't believe that when they say, no, this had nothing to do with the Texans and nothing to do with the Oilers. I don't believe that. And again, I think the Titans, it would help them on the football field if they just called it like it was. Instead of everything always just being a narrative. It's
saying it would help them on the football field is just the same thing as saying, oh, the new uniforms are going to give them confidence. None of this matters.
Well, I think telling the truth about your football team
doesn't make you better at football.
I think looking in the mirror and admitting reality does make you better at football.
No, that's not part of it, man. Like, look, I talked to a bunch of people last night, and the most common refrain, if we're just being 100% real, the most common refrain was, oh, I don't care that much. It'll feel good if we win, though.
Oh, like, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's how everybody should feel. Like, I get it. But
go win the Super Bowl in those jerseys. You won't hear me bitch about them.
Yeah, I was talking with, I can't remember who it was last night. It might have been Buck, but we were talking about, like, Derrick Henry could have been wearing a Bachelorette-informed jersey, but if he ran for 2,000 yards, people were going to love him. Go play good football. That's true. But also, let me just the nostalgia of it all. We know scientifically that nostalgia tends to work in 15-year cycles. We get that people are nostalgic for things that happened when they were teenagers and before that, when the generation before them were teenagers and all that stuff. The Oilers uniforms are right now in the 30 and 45-year period of nostalgia where everybody is bringing them back. 10 years from now, people are going to love the Chris Johnson era uniforms, and there's going to be a nostalgia for that, and we're going to see them wear the light blue throwbacks with the blue shoulders, and everybody's like, we know how nostalgia works, and just it happens there in a rebrand at a point when this nostalgia is at its peak. I have no nostalgia for the Oilers uniforms. I do not fundamentally remember them. I started watching football roughly 98, 99. I don't have that tug to anything but the McNair era Oilers Titans uniforms, because that's the first stuff I remember about the Titans. Therefore, I see these and I think, oh yeah, those are fine. I don't like the logo very much. The jerseys are fine. The logo looks like Mickey Mouse without his ears. It feels incomplete. I'm going to miss the Flames, and I'm probably the only person on earth who's going to miss the Flames.
I miss Flames.
Okay. There's something about it. The circle just feels too precise, too symmetrical. There's something about it that feels uneasy to me. But yeah, the uniforms are fine. The uniforms are Oilers uniforms that are twisted a little bit to look like the Titans. I've had multiple people tell me they think the whites look like Buffalo Bills jerseys. I can't refute it. They're fine. They're good enough jerseys. People are going to like them. I saw a bunch of people buying them. I saw a bunch of people enthusiastic about them. I had one person tell me,
they could have pooped on a jersey and people would have bought it.
But my favorite review that I actually heard was, after all these years of losing, that navy blue started looking more muted and more muted and more muted, and it just started looking dull by the end of last year. I was sick of seeing it. And I think that's the main takeaway, is that people were excited because it's something. This is something. They acted like they won a game last night. Yeah, that's because they don't win a lot of games. So if you want to feel joy where you can find it. And last night was joyous. Was it deservedly joyous? Again, as I wrote last night, if you call something instantly timeless, that's a lot like calling a color orangely green. You can't just call something instantly timeless and make people believe it, but you can try and sell fun, and I really do think they sold fun.
I just don't like the idea of the Titans, again, spinning a narrative that is so clearly not true and then acting like we're all so stupid that we should just believe it. And I do think that mentality that has really run that franchise like that for the last 5 years does hurt them when it comes to winning and losing football games. I seriously mean that. I mean, I'll take the Vrabel Rancarthon thing. I mean, I knew right away that Rancarthon did not have the chops to be a general manager. And the Titans, because the narrative was Vrabel bad, Rand good, doubled down and let Rand spend all that money, and he spent all that money on an injured corner and a bad center, and they didn't even have a right tackle. And it was because they got too caught up in their narratives and trying to, make everybody feel good in the offseason, in the moment. And I think that's why Chad Brinker's kept his job as long as he has, because he's great at spinning the next narrative, the next consultant line, the next whatever it may be. Remember last year? Last year was draft, develop, retain. Free agency, bad. And again, I just wish the Titans would keep it real. I wish the Titans would look in the mirror. I wish the Titans would admit their own mistakes. I wish the Titans would level with their fan base. And instead, it's just always some statement from Amy about nobody wants to do better than me. And then it's back to these bullcrap narratives like, we are not wearing Oiler jerseys because we used to be the Oilers. And we are not wearing Oiler jerseys because we never got over the 1994 fight between our father and the city. And we're not wearing them because the Texan fans thought that they should get the uniforms when, again.
Look, Jared, I obviously agree that I want this organization to be more transparent. Nobody is arguing on behalf of non-transparency. The idea that their lack of transparency is contributing to the losses, if you want to make the argument that the non-transparency led to bad roster decisions, I'll hear you out, but I still think they hired the guy. The confidence in Ran, or the narrative about Ran, is immaterial after they hired him. They hired the guy and he made bad decisions. You can talk about the narrative, but it was still the decision making.
So you think I've just wound myself up in this basically feeling disrespected by the team when they talk to us like we're stupid?
Yeah, I don't like that either. Like, there was a quote yesterday where I think it was Easton, somebody asked something along the lines of, well, how do you respond to the criticism that this is totally lost the Greek narrative, that there's nothing Greek about this anymore? And the response we got was, well, anybody can be a Titan in their industry. Dolly Parton was a Titan. Pat Summitt was a Titan. B.B. King was a Titan. And I'm sitting there like, that's silly. That's not what, you know what that's not. Just say, we wanted to de-emphasize the Greek imagery. Okay. I would have said okay. You don't have to make up a new thing.
Do you think people would have been mad if you had, or if Easton had asked that question and they had responded by saying, well, look, there's only so many things that you can really embrace when you're going for a brand, you know, a rebranding, and we wanted to go more for the Music City element with the guitar strings. We wanted to go more with the Tennessee element with the stars, and we wanted to go back to our history of Warren Moon and Earl Campbell and all those players. And so there's only so many things we can embrace. It's not that we don't like our, you know, Greek association with the Titans. It's just, where is that on the list of what we're trying to embrace?
No, they should have said that. Totally. Yeah, just say the truth. Again, that's where I'm agreeing with you, is that, like, if you just said, we got rid of the fireball and we got rid of the sword because we wanted to de-emphasize that part of our imagery because we didn't find that necessary to the story we're telling about who we are. Okay, that's fine. But then bringing BB King into it, like, that's just strange to me. That is just okay, that sounds like something I would have heard at a presidential debate of you're asked a question and you evade the answer by saying buzzwords that make people feel a certain way because you're mentioning people with high Q ratings or something. Like, it does feel a little bit political. And a lot of what the Titans do feels a lot of bit political. But I still think the connection between that and the wins and losses is a little more dubious than Jared has portrayed it. My opinion, not negating the fact that Jared should be able to have his opinion. It's just not my opinion.
I am just so tired of this organization talking to all of us like we're stupid. Like, I am so, I'm so tired of it. I just, again, every time it's like, I don't even want to get into it because it'll take me back to like conversations I've had with the organization where I'm just like, guys, I'm not stupid. The fans are not stupid, but and they'll never say the fans are stupid, but they treat the fans like the fans are stupid, and it drives me nuts. Let's get to some of the reaction here because I actually do want to hit on the free agents
for sure.
Titans signed. One person says, I'm hoping they once a year break out the Navy jerseys just to give the fans who like them something to look forward to, like the Seahawks do with the Color Rush highlighter jerseys. So the Titans are going to be wearing these rivalry jerseys this upcoming season, a new Navy jersey. I think that's just this season.
Just one home game this season, yes.
That they're going to wear them. Guys, it's back to the way it was when they moved from Memphis. They're going to have light blue and they're going to have white. That's what it's going to be. There's not going to be a Navy jersey on a consistent basis. There's not going to be a red jersey. It's going to be white and baby blue.
I will say though, I do not expect them to do full renovations of old Nissan Stadium this year to take out all of the old branding just for one season. Expect the stuff that you can see on TV to be renovated, but a lot of the exterior, a lot of the tunnels and concourses and stuff like that, you're still going to see a lot of Navy next year just because financially it doesn't make sense to do it the other way. And also they still are telling you that Navy is one of their 4 colors. They had 6 colors. They're down to 4. They got rid of both shades of silver, but they claim that Navy is still going to be on the sideline for the foreseeable future, if that helps anybody.
In fairness to Amy, if I bought the team, the first thing I would do is I would go back to the jerseys they wore when I was a kid. Like, if I bought the team, you know, let's say that I inherited $10 trillion and I went to the Titans with an offer they couldn't refuse and I bought the team, we'd have a uniform rebrand party tomorrow and it would be the 1999 jerseys with the alternate red jersey that I bought in 2000, a Javon Curse jersey that they never wore in a game. But so, she's just going back to what she remembers from her childhood. I want what I had in my childhood. So
yeah, I can't find my Steve McNair figurine that's somewhere on my desk behind me, but I have those uniforms. I will keep it with me. Don't worry.
Caleb says uniforms look fine, but it's going to be weird rooting for a team that doesn't look anything like the team I grew up with. In fairness, it is the team that I played NFL Blitz 98 with because they were the Tennessee Oilers. Steve McNair, Eddie George, Frank Wycheck, Yancey Thigpen, Kevin Dyson, Lonnie Martz, Blaine Bishop on defense. I think Joe Bowden, Baron Wortham, Eddie Robinson.
We get it.
Back in the day. Josh says, I agree with Jared. Don't treat us like we're dumb and that we aren't seeing what we think.
Yeah. Nobody should lie. I agree that lying is bad.
One person, I'm trying to find it in the chat. I didn't star it, so I can't go to it. Said, here you go. Jared, stop complaining. Find a new team. You're itching to your...
I think that's a star of a B.
Oh, your bitching is getting more annoying by the minute. Again, just because I am not championing the pep rally does not mean that... what's funny? Everybody always thinks like Jared's just looking for things to complain about. People say that all the time. And
they're a little bit true.
Well, here's what bothers me, Sus. Like, we know each other. I don't like, we haven't worked together every day kind of thing.
Yeah.
I hope people understand, like, I really do believe I'm not looking for things to complain about. They constantly do things that completely irritate me. Like spending $40 million on average corners when Trey Hendrickson is sitting out there in free agency. Like, it drives me nuts. And when people are like, go find another team, I'm like, I don't know. They're 6-28 over the last 2 years. Maybe we should be allowed to criticize.
Yeah. I think two things are true here with Jared. And again, we are not like hang out, go get a beer after work friends, but we know each other pretty well. I think he's a little bit genetically predisposed to be angry about stuff. But I also think he sincerely believes what he believes, and he's telling you what he believes. So is he a little more worked up than the average fan? Yeah, that's why he has a microphone in front of his face. It's good television. It's good radio. But this is not an act. This is not performance, you guys.
I took a personality test in like 2018 one time, and it was like the Enneagram or whatever.
Yeah.
And all I remember is it came out as my role was a debater.
The challenger or something like that.
I was an analyst and a debater. And I was like, well, I guess that kind of fits with what I do. And it was basically like, you're always going to take the side of the underdog. You're always going to go against the grain. It's natural. It's whatever. Like, I'll just put it to you like this. Coke or Pepsi, Sus? Which one do you drink?
Oh, I drink both. But gun to my head, the single best flavor on earth is wild cherry Pepsi.
I agree with that, by the way. But I am pro Pepsi. And I think it's like 73% of America is pro Coca-Cola over Pepsi. Now, Pepsi still sells a ton of product and everything. I'm a Pepsi guy. And I think when it comes to, just the way I feel about that, I think that may be like a contrarian view.
Yeah.
But I don't know that. I think it may be a subconscious thing. Speaking of beverages, Sinker's Beverages is a great place to go get all kinds of great beverages. Your local craft cocktails, everything else. This guy saying water is the only way to go. We're not all as great and as disciplined as you, Tom Brady. But Sinker's Beverages is the best for the THC cocktails like I like to drink, or, the high-end bourbon like Sus likes to drink. They have it all at Sinker's Beverages. Are you a high-end bourbon guy?
No. I do think they have water at Sinker's Beverages, though, Sir Lance. You can probably find water there. No, I am not a high-end bourbon guy. I don't have a good stomach for liquor.
Do you drink it like wine, beer?
Occasionally.
I don't really, and again, I love Sinker's Beverages. I'm a THC cocktail guy. I don't really drink much. I mean, I used to, like, when I was in my 20s, I was like, we're going out. And now I'm just kind of like, if I drink the next day, I got a headache, and I'm like,
I will tell you, though.
THC drinks. And then I eat like a pint of ice cream.
As much as I'm not a drinker, one of my great ambitions in life is to have a bar that I call the bar, and I can tell my wife and friends, "Hey, you want to meet at the bar?" Like I just want to have that. So like I don't want to drink because I like drinking, but I do want to have a place in a sitcom where you can go to and you don't have to say the name of it. Hey, let's just meet at the diner. They'll know
Yeah,
what
where
you're talking about.
everybody knows your name.
Yeah, I want that. So I do have a Cheers sign right over there, just out of reach, that says where everybody knows your name. I could have used the prop, but you bamboozled me. You ambushed me. Yeah, I'm not a drinker, but I am a big fan of being in public with people, and I think that's Braden's whole spiel about alcohol.
There you go. All right, Sus. Free agency. I hate might be strong in this instance. I do not love what the Titans have done in free agency. What are your thoughts? Let's start with the macro view here before we go more micro. They were very aggressive on day one. Cordell Flott, Alante Taylor, John Franklin Myers, Wandale Robinson, Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Bellinger. They added some what I think are backup offensive linemen, but I'm not sure. What do you make of the approach in free agency, the Dable Saleh general manager free agent class that they've put together?
The Titans did a lot of stuff that I personally would have done. And I don't know if that's good because I don't think I would be a very good general manager. So maybe this is self doubt. Maybe I need to talk myself up. But like, if you asked me to draw up what my personal list of things I would have done if I'm rebuilding the Titans this year, my first two decisions would have been, once you've traded Sweat, go get John Franklin Myers and make sure you are one edge rusher away from having that 4-man defensive line that you need. And so if that means you're using Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby as that fourth, or if that means you're using the number 4 pick on that fourth, you're one player away from having the 4-man push. They did that. The second thing I would have done was go sign 3 or 4 cornerbacks for however much money it costs to have 3 or 4 cornerbacks, and have a stopgap room of veterans, of mercenaries in that room who make sure that you don't have what I would have argued was probably the largest individual weakness that any team in the NFL had at any position group. The Titans didn't have a cornerback on roster. They had Marcus Harris, who, coming off an injury and a 6th-round pick, and probably shouldn't be implicated as a starter based off of limited exposure we saw last year. And they have L'Jarius Sneed, who we all expect to be released at some point in the incoming future.
So you think the Cleveland Browns are better at quarterback than the Titans were at corner?
By default, I would argue that, yeah. Like, that's how bad I thought the cornerback room was. And they went out and they got 3 players who are all, if any of those 3 players were on the Titans last year, they would have been cornerback number 1.
Okay, but let me ask you this, though, because this time last year, it wasn't Jalen Armour Davis and Darrell Baker and whoever's
Sure.
Jr. out there.
Yeah.
It was McCreary, Brownlee, and Sneed. And they thought, I guess, Sneed was going to contribute, even though I thought it was more likely Sneed was going to be in jail. So whatever. But is this group, Flott, Taylor, and Williams, or whoever
whether it's Williams or Harris or a draft pick, yeah.
Whatever, is that better? For $40 million, is that better than McCreary, Brownlee, and Sneed?
Probably not. I think the money's immaterial here.
But the money keeps you from signing Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Again, I would have drafted over signing Trey Hendrickson personally. He's a 31-year-old edge rusher coming off an injury who has had multiple contract disputes. And I don't love the idea of throwing, what did he end up getting? $28 million a year. The money's material there. The money with Flott making, 15, 14?
16.99 year one cash.
Okay. The money with that is like, oh, okay, you're spending the gap between that and what's the upgrade? Jamel Dean making close to 18. I don't think that the gap in top of market value at that position is as extreme. So I really like Cordell Flott for what it's worth. I think people who've listened to the show have heard me bring him up 3 or 4 times over the past couple of months. Alontae Taylor, I personally would have stayed away from. He gives up a lot of touchdowns, and I don't love cornerbacks who give up a lot of touchdowns. But I see the upside. I see the promise. I see the versatility. I see the scheme fit. So I don't mind overpaying a little bit for promise there. And more importantly, is this better than Brownlee and McCreary? I don't know. It could be. It could be equal. Brownlee did not have a great season after he left Nashville. McCreary got hurt, and we really didn't get to see. But obviously, the league isn't valuing McCreary all that highly. I don't believe he's been signed yet. So if you kind of look at it, yeah, I think that if you base it off of performance and league metrics, they got better. If you base it off of knowing the Titans and seeing how these guys performed, it's really hard to separate eye test if the one team you're watching every week more closely than everybody else has these players. But that's a long way of saying the 2 things that I would have done to try and set this team up for success are 2 things they did. And 2 of the 3 players I would have signed are Franklin Myers and Flott. I probably would have subbed out Alontae Taylor for Jamel Dean if I could have. But they came pretty close to doing what my top 2 priorities would have been. If it works out, hire me. If it doesn't work out, proof why I shouldn't be hired.
I like Franklin Myers. I mean, I think it's an overpay, but that's free agency, so I'm not upset about that. I like Franklin Myers. I still think they need a dynamite edge. And the only reason that I would have given the money to Hendrickson as opposed to, well, just draft Bain, Bailey, or Reese, which I think they're going to do, is because on offense in this year's crop, the fact that Alec Pierce was in such high demand, I think points out how few truly impactful offensive players were available in this cycle. And I think Jeremiah Love is an impactful offensive player. And I think they need impactful offensive players. I don't think they have a single impactful offensive player on the team. And when I talk about impactful offensive player, I'm not saying that they don't have solid NFL players. I'm talking about A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, you know, that kind of player. And so for me, I'm like, okay, so how do you get that kind of player? Because I think they need to have that kind of player to help out Cam Ward. And I'm like, all right, so how do you get that player? Is there a tight end out there that you can get? No. Because Brock Bowers is not available in free agency this year. Is there a receiver out there that you could get? No, because Alec Pierce was the top guy on the board, and I don't think Alec Pierce is that impactful. I think he's a good deep ball threat, but I don't think he is, again, we're talking A.J. Brown caliber player. I think Jeremiah Love is that player, and he might be the only player in this draft that is that kind of player. Like right away, comes out, put the ball in his hands, let him go to work with it. And because of that, I would have paid for the edge rusher instead of drafting the edge rusher. And I just don't value corners. My whole philosophy on corners, Kobe Durant just signed a 1-year, $5 million contract with somebody.
Yeah.
My whole philosophy going into free agency at corner was get a damn good pass rush and then wait until Friday of free agency week and go sign a McCreary, go sign a Kobe Durant, go sign a Noah Igbenogany, go sign
Russell Douglas, Akello Witherspoon. There's a bunch of guys. Yeah.
Go sign those guys for a combined $10 million and spend the money on the pass rushers. And they don't even have a right guard right now. They don't have a center right now. Like we're talking about helping out Cam Ward. They don't have a center.
Yeah, there's a reason I haven't talked about offense yet, because I'm not quite clear on what they're doing. Defensively, they've built a defense that I feel like, okay, that can play. They can play defense there.
I do have one take, though, which is on defense. I don't have a problem with all the mid-level solid guys on defense. The Solomon Thomases, the who was the guy they signed yesterday from the Commanders, the pass rusher for $5 million.
Yeah.
I have no problem with those guys, because what I think he's doing is I think he's building that Jets defensive line that he had, and Jeffrey Simmons is Quinnen Williams. Okay.
Good. It's a good group.
Who's Fred Warner? And who's Sauce Gardner?
Well, Fred Warner played for the 49ers. Do you mean Quincy Williams?
No. But what I'm talking about is like that big time inside backer on Saleh's defense. Who's that guy?
I think that you can argue that Cedric Gray will be a small time version of that. He's not Fred Warner because there's one Fred Warner, but God, I don't want to repeat myself this many times. I don't care who your inside linebackers are. There are two good ones in the entire NFL.
I know. Who's your Sauce Gardner? If you value corner so much, which I don't, which is why I think the Colts were stupid to make that trade, who is your Sauce Gardner?
Regular listeners of this show know that my ideal situation would be trade back from 4 to 7 and pick Mansour Delane. I would have done that all along. I would have paid Boye Mafe, not the number 1 edge rusher on the market, but I would have went and got the number 3 or 4 edge rusher on the market, and I would have saved the money on the corner and picked the corner in the first round. Because as somebody who does value corners, I would have drafted one high. I don't think running back is a significant enough need to entertain it there. I'm not even talking about positional value. I just don't know how much better you get by improving a running back room that goes from slightly above average to more above average.
Oh, I think Jeremiah Love's like a top 6 back in the league the day he shows up.
Oh, I think that to rewind about a year, I think Jeremiah Love as a prospect is to Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson as a prospect as Abdul Carter was to like Nick Bosa and Aiden Hutchinson. Like, I think that he is a good number 1 running back. I don't think that if you line up the number 1 running backs from the last 10 classes, I think Jeremiah Love would be 4th or 5th. Like, I don't think he is. Yeah, I don't put him above Saquon coming out. I don't put him above Bijan coming out. I'm doing the math on how many drafts would be 10 drafts ago. I don't put him above McCaffrey coming out.
Fournette
coming out, probably not. Gurley coming out, definitely not. Zeke Elliott coming out, I don't think so. Like, we got to acknowledge that being the number 1 running back is exciting. I think I put him a little bit ahead of Genty, but they're pretty close. And Genty went, 7 last year?
6.
I think that he's a really good number 1 running back, and I agree he is the best overall skill player available between free agency and the draft. But if last year we were sitting here saying, oh, in a regular year, I don't know if Abdul Carter would be this kind of impactful edge number 1, because we're so used to seeing Will Anderson and Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett at the tops of drafts, I think it's fair to compare the main player that Jeremiah Love gets compared to is Jahmyr Gibbs, who was running back 2 the year that Bijan Robinson came out. And I don't want to be talking out of both sides of my mouth here. I preferred Jahmyr Gibbs at the time. I really have always liked Jahmyr Gibbs. But we still can't just say, oh, generational. You can't cry generational just because he's at the top of a draft. Do some thinking really, truly internally to yourself. And bring up the names that we brought up here. Bring up Todd Gurley, bring up Zeke Elliott, bring up Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Ashton Genty, all of these running backs that have gone in the top 10. And ask yourself truly how many of those you feel better about Jeremiah Love than those guys at that time.
So I think Jeremiah Love is a different kind of player. So that's why I brought Fournette's name in there, because Fournette technically was a high pick. But I think that Fournette and Jeremiah Love are 2 totally different players. I mean, Jeremiah Love, to me, the Titans have no impact speed outside of Chimdike. And the second player they had that had speed is Chig, and he's gone. And they've replaced him with a guy who catches 19 passes. So I want people that with the ball in their hands, have that true breakaway impact athleticism and are not 5'8" and 150 pounds like Wan'Dale Robinson, which I do think Wan'Dale Robinson will help the Titans because Cam, I think, needs a short target. And I don't mean short like 5'8", but I mean like short intermediate passing target.
Yeah,
because I don't think Cam's a great deep ball thrower. But I really think that Jeremiah Love does have McCaffrey, Barkley, and Bijan-like ability. And so the way I view it is I think the easiest way to compete in the NFL is to run the ball and play defense. I feel like Robert Saleh is going to figure out the defense. I would pay Trey Hendrickson, so I'd have Hendrickson and Franklin Myers and Simmons and Johnson and I'd feel great about getting after the quarterback. I think I could put Greg Maben at corner, and I'd still be okay with that pass rush. And then I'd run the football, and I'd bring my young quarterback along slowly. And right now, again, they don't have a center and they don't have a right guard. So, and they spent $8 million on a tight end who, again, caught 19 passes last year.
Yeah, that's the signing to me that felt the least inspired. The Daniel Bellinger signing just doesn't read as anything other than they want a quick shortcut to installing culture before they want a quick shortcut to improving the roster.
But isn't the culture good? Because I asked Mike Borgonzi at the first question at his press conference when the power went out about whether or not he failed this past season as general manager because they didn't win a single game more than they did the year before. And he talked about how the guys never quit. That was the thing that they never quit. So isn't that a sign that your culture is good if your team sucks, but your guys never quit?
Sure, but there's just definitional difference of what we're talking about here. The culture, I'm referring to what Saleh and Daboll and Bradley want from their players, like that version of culture. The overall organizational culture, that's up to Borgonzi, that's up to player acquisition, all that stuff. But like tight end, we'll use this as an example, might be the only position, running back, tight end and running back are the only two positions I can think of on this roster that have a returning starter and a returning position coach. That is the room that is the toughest to bring your new identity or your new culture into, because Luke Stalker is back and Gunnar Helm is back. So you bring in Daniel Bellinger into that room as somebody who has been in Daboll's system before, who has been in Daboll's culture before, and now you've got a guy in the room who, okay, that's a shortcut to doing tight end our way. In the same way that every other position, quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, is a shortcut to doing things their way. Wan'Dale Robinson at receiver is a shortcut to doing things their way. We can go down the roster. That's why they're doing this, doing things their way. And so Bellinger, to me, there were probably 10 tight ends that you could have paid less money to who would have given you as much or more than Bellinger. Bellinger wasn't even the Giants tight end who I would have gone after because I thought Chris Manhertz was a better blocker last year and I thought the Titans needed more blocking help. But all of this adds up to they're doing things in a way that favors the shortcut to knowing what the coaches expect. Maybe expectation is the word I should be using instead of culture. And if your shortcut to expectation is we want the standard to be established immediately, we want a bunch of people who know the standard and respect the standard and are going to play to the standard, that reads a lot to me like a team that's trying to win 7 games. That reads a lot to me like a team that is trying to improve its floor a lot more than a team that's trying to improve its ceiling.
So wasn't that the whole thing they said last year they didn't care about? Remember the reporting that you had that, we could sign Sam Darnold, but we don't want to win 7 games. We want to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And so they won 3 games and now they're doing the opposite.
Quarterback is its own beast. It does sound a lot like that. I'm not refuting that, but I think it's more with quarterback. You're signing Sam Darnold to a 2-year contract. You're going to have to pay him again in 3 years, or you're signing to a 3-year contract. You're going to have to pay him again in 4 years. And the quarterback in his prime, while the roster's not ready to compete yet, you are not improving your floor. You're just extending your misery in a little bit of a way because you're still not building a team that will be ready to get to the playoffs, because by the time your young players are extension eligible, your quarterback is also going to be out of his prime and you're going to need to replace him and you're going to be off kilter. So I think that not wanting to win 7 games was a lot more to do with timeline, organizational timeline. Whereas this, on the timeline, this is the year the Titans are supposed to win 7 games. And then next year they're supposed to win 10 or 11 games. Is that fun? Is that fun to hear? No, I'm sorry if you are like live and die by the Titans and I'm sitting here saying, man, this feels like a team that's really, really trying to win 7 games. But that's just my read on it. I
just believe in building the best team that you can build and then seeing where you go from there. I far too often people are like, well, I have to be I have to think I'm going to win the Super Bowl in order to make that kind of move. Well, okay, so all the teams that have good quarterbacks think that they're Super Bowl caliber. The Ravens think they're Super Bowl caliber, but they're picking 14th. There's no guarantee that the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl. Same with Buffalo, same with all these teams. And so I guess I just believe in building the best team you can build. And I understand, like, I wouldn't trade my first round draft choice that's number 4 overall this year, or trade next year's first rounder in order to get marginally better. But I do just believe in going out and building the best team you can build and trying to win as many games as you can every season.
Yeah. And that's a really, really, really good recipe to be good for 3 years. And like being good for 3 years, you're probably going to be remembered pretty positively. If you're a GM who builds a team that's good for 3 years and then immediately falls off the cliff, congrats, you're John Robinson. Like,
well, John Robinson never got to fall off the cliff. I mean, they were 7-5 when he got fired.
But the team fell off the cliff, and it was his team. Like,
but
you're right.
He should have been given another offseason to be able to right those wrongs.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm still saying that team would have fallen off the cliff no matter who they had no money that next offseason.
I think they would have beaten Jacksonville if she had not fired him in the middle of the week and thrown everybody for that. Whoa, they would have beaten Jacksonville. They would have won the division that year.
You're right. And then they would have stunk the next year. Then they would have won 5 or 6
games. Or
Robinson
would have done what he did in 16 and what he did in 19, and he would have figured. I mean, I'm not saying he would have, but I think he earned the right to be able to do that.
We don't need to re-legislate that. My point is, if you live by the mentality of every year, just build the best team you possibly can, that's when you trade for Julio Jones. That's when you pick up Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley. That's when you give too much money to Bud Dupree. When you always play the we're one player away game, you're reaching. It's like, did any of you guys, or did you read the big story in the Atlantic yesterday about the guy who tried to be a sports gambler for a year?
I saw it. I didn't click it. But
it's
I did see they gave him 10 grand to be a sports gambler.
Not to spoil the article, but one of the things that they talk about a lot in it is when you start forming a gambling addiction, one of the things that you have to guard yourself against is the one bet away recap of, oh, I just lost, so now I need to go all in to make it back. Oh, I just lost that one. Now I need to double down to make it back. And it feels like when you are constantly building a team the way that you're advocating for, you always are at the mercy of that one move hitting. And in the case of the Seattle Seahawks, it worked. It worked. They won the Super Bowl. That is incredible. It worked. In the case of all of these other teams that are always one player away, it hasn't worked. It doesn't work. And that's why good coaches and good GMs get fired.
Yeah, but wouldn't trading A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks be the opposite of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That is the A.J. Brown has bad knees, and we can get a younger player that we think is comparable to A.J. Brown in exchange for A.J. Brown, and then it blew up in his face.
Yeah, because the one move away mentality that he had the 2 years before failed both times. So then they tried to reset, and they couldn't live the best of both worlds because it was the worst of both worlds.
But I think the reason that they traded A.J. Brown is because they didn't want to pay A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
I don't think that has anything to do with Julio Jones.
No, but my point is that these don't have to be related. You're the one who brought up the A.J. Brown thing. I'm saying that the failures of that era, and I'm only using that because the listeners here know the Titans. We can pick a different team that has failed off if we want to talk about that. But like the failures of that era, and I did this big thing that nobody read, and I'm a little salty about it, but I did this big thing back in February where I essentially rewrote history, like 6 years of Titans football.
Yeah, I saw the headline of the what if they had never fired Mike Vrabel, and it reminded me of when I needed to fill out pages in my Western Civilization sophomore year research paper. And so I was like, if Winston Churchill wasn't in charge of Britain during World War II, and there was a giant red X that the teacher wrote through that like extra page of bullcrap that I put. I felt like that's what that was. And Nick Suss saying, if Vrabel hadn't gotten fired.
And it was a really fun exercise that like you guys can go listen to the football show where we talked through it. But like my big lesson when I was looking back at it was when you are a team that is 11-6, when you're a team that's there, that feel like you have a championship window, the immediate temptation is to deviate from your identity to get the one thing that's missing. You built a team one way. You built a team. You want to talk about draft, develop, retain? How about Kevin Byard and Jack Conklin and Derrick Henry in the same draft? How about Jeffrey Simmons and AJ Brown and all
Nate
these
Davis,
Nate
Amani
Davis,
Hooker,
Amani Hooker, David Long? How about all these people? That's draft, develop, retain. What got you there? And then the original sin, the biting of the apple that tanked the Titans, was not retaining Jack Conklin and not being able to have a right tackle for the next 5 years.
Okay,
I'm not saying Jack.
Right there. I'm stopping right there. I believe what got you there, this is just me, was, and nobody talks about this, the first moves they made, DeMarco Murray, Ben Jones, getting tougher in the trenches. Now, they didn't hit on every single one of those moves because they drafted Kevin Dodd, and that didn't work. And you're not going to hit on every single
Austin
decision
Johnson,
you make. And so I believe, like, when it comes to this team right now, I'm like, this team needs a DeMarco Murray. That's what this team needs. And DeMarco Murray was not on that team that went to the AFC title game or the 2020 team or even the number 1 seed team. But I don't think you build that team without DeMarco Murray in 16 and 17. And I am in 16 and 17. And you could argue that when they acquired DeMarco Murray, when the Mariota window opened, the way they're in the exact same spot with Cam right now, that DeMarco Murray would not be in his prime as a running back. But that doesn't mean that DeMarco Murray's not important. And that's what I'm talking about with, hey, go just get the best players and try to win games. And
but dude, there's a huge gap between DeMarco Murray and Trey Hendrickson, right? Like, DeMarco Murray is a lot more like the guys the Titans signed this year than he's like the guys that the Titans didn't sign that you're advocating for. That was a guy on the downswing of his career. No. That was a veteran. Dude, he was definitely on the downswing of his career.
You're telling me DeMarco Murray is more like Daniel Bellinger.
No, but I'm telling you
he's like Trey Hendrickson.
No, but I'm telling you he's a lot more like John Franklin Myers. I'm telling you he's a lot more.
DeMarco Murray was a top of the league running back who went to a terrible fit for him and immediately got out of the Chip Kelly offense and went right back to being a top of the league running back.
For a year, he was a considerably up and down back. He was an inconsistent running back. He was a cornerback of a running back, of a guy you didn't know who you were getting year over year. You didn't go get a top of the market running back. That would have been like going and getting, like, DeMarco Murray's not Kenneth Walker in this class. He's like, what, Rashad White? Like, he's good. He's a good player. I agree with you that him and Ben Jones and that kicked it off. I agree with you.
Over his 17-game average, DeMarco Murray averages 1,232 yards and 8 touchdowns a season.
Okay. He's a good player. I'm not refuting he's a good player. I just don't think he's Trey Hendrickson. If you're saying, oh, the Titans went and got DeMarco Murray, look at what DeMarco Murray was that year. Go to the 2016 free agency class and look where he was among the highest paid players in that class.
Well, he was one of the highest paid in 2015, and then they traded for him.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
The next year. I mean, he was one of those day one break the bank signings when he went from Dallas to Philadelphia, and then it was a disaster between him and Chip Kelly, and he rushed for 700 yards. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I still knew DeMarco Murray was a good player. Like, Trey Hendrickson didn't have a good year last year because he got hurt. I still know Trey Hendrickson's a good player.
Yeah, I just think that comparing a running back who was coming off of a couple of bad seasons, who had some promise, to
one bad season. The year before that, he led the league in rushing and touchdowns and everything else.
Okay. I don't know if they were consecutive bad seasons, but I know there was a little bit of a gap between his breakout year and the second good year and the third good year. He was up and down. Nevertheless, comparing that to the consensus number 1 free agent on the board is a little bit disingenuous, and I think you know that.
No, I think he's a DeMarco Murray type player.
That's just such a weird thing to say, man. That's weird. That is a weird thing to say.
Okay, DeMarco Murray was a distressed asset because of what had happened in Philadelphia, right? In Dallas, he was a Pro Bowl running back back-to-back years, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, and then he signs the massive free agent deal in Philly. And that doesn't work out because of Chip Kelly, which I think is fair to say, right? That's Chip's fault more than it's DeMarco's fault. Because as soon as DeMarco comes back to Tennessee, DeMarco is 1,209 touchdowns. So over a 3-year period, DeMarco, except for the year that he played for Chip Kelly, was at least 9 touchdowns and at least 1,200 yards. Like, DeMarco was a top-of-the-league running back at that point. Trey Hendrickson is a top-of-the-league sacker who last year didn't have a great year, got hurt, but it's not a serious injury. And I'm saying, hey, go get him. You won't have to give up any draft capital in order to go get him. Go get him, and your football team will be better. And that is how you teach young players how to win.
But that is, again, it's just such a strange argument because they're not at all corollary players. You're talking about the player who was the consensus best free agent available.
Although the teams didn't view it that way because nobody was jumping out to say Jalen Phillips signed for more money.
Sure. And I talked about last week that I thought Jalen Phillips would get more money, but ESPN and USA Today and all these places had him ranked as the best free agent available. I think NFL.com had Malik Willis as the best free agent available, which is
ridiculous.
Just a thing you can say. But look, we're talking about a guy who at the very worst was considered the third or fourth best player available on the market, who was expected to make bank-breaking, paradigm-shifting money versus a running back who you traded for on a more manageable deal. I know it was a big deal, but a more manageable deal that you still went out and immediately replaced in the same draft. And I know it took Derek a couple of years to get going, and I'm not rewriting history that Derek wasn't the number 3 back at that time. And I know the history. But comparing these two things feels like the only point you're making, it's salient, but it's not worth saying. The only point you're making is go get good players who've been on good teams.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Go get the best players you can get.
So don't compare DeMarco Murray to Trey Hendrickson. Just say
they went and got the best player they could get. They got DeMarco Murray to run the ball to help the young quarterback. I'm getting Trey Hendrickson to rush the passer to help the young quarterback.
Okay. Good for you. This doesn't make sense as an argument.
Good players. I'm not allowed to have good players.
I'm just saying your argument doesn't. Your
I have
point
to
makes
draft
sense.
Derrick Henry, but I can't bring Derrick Henry up the way that they brought up Derrick Henry. It's like Mike Borgonzi with Cam and Mahomes. You want Mahomes, and you come from Kansas City where they have Mahomes, and you think this guy can be Mahomes. But then you do the exact opposite of everything Kansas City did that has helped Mahomes become Mahomes, and you shrug your shoulders and say, oh, yeah, is what it is.
Jared, do you know the meme that's like a picture of a high school test that's been graded and the teacher in red pen wrote, I have no idea how you got the right answer, but you did? That's all I'm saying right now. The point you're making is fair. Just the formula you're using doesn't make any sense to me. I agree, you should go get good players. I also think you should have a timeline, and I'm not refuting the fact that the Titans should have a timeline, and they do have a timeline, and they're building for something.
Why is Jeffrey Simmons on this team if this timeline is so important?
I don't know. I said that on your show on Monday. I don't know. Every team in this situation that is trying to rebuild trades away their best asset so they can get more. Every team in this situation does. And the only answer the Titans have given time after time as to why they didn't trade Jeffrey Simmons is that they wanted somebody in the locker room who was a proven example of what it looks like to win and be rewarded in this locker room. And I think that is fair logic. It doesn't make the team better. It doesn't give you the rewards and the assets you would have gotten for trading him. But their answer is they wanted somebody in the locker room who can be an example to young players of if you succeed in this uniform, you will be rewarded in this uniform. Is that worth more than 2 first-round picks? That's up for Mike Borgonzi to decide, and Mike Borgonzi has decided his opinion on this.
There is one team that does that. The one team that just truly believes in, we want to extend our guys. We don't care about other guys. We want you to do things in our uniform, and we extend you. That team is the Colts.
Well, the Packers too.
No, Micah Parsons.
The Packers for
Green Bay Packers.
The 29
Josh
years.
Jacobs,
the 29 years before
Packer.
that. The
Xavier
29
McKinney
years before that.
Got
Jared.
the bag. Not agree. Right. The Ted Thompson era, and may Ted Thompson rest in peace. But lately, they've been active in free agency. They've been letting their own guys go. They certainly have let guys go into free agency. And I'm telling you, they have spent the Green Bay Packers, who in all the Ted Thompson years did not spend, Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs, Micah Parsons. It's very unpacker-like, but that is the path they're going. The Colts are the only team that is like, we want to pay guys who are Colts. You want to be like the Colts?
No. But again, I'm not in charge. I'm just talking about the team.
And that's why I get so mad, because I think they're screwing it up. I think you can agree with me. It does feel oftentimes like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
A little bit. Again, if you look at the examples, and we talked about this earlier in the week, if you look at the way Buffalo kicked off their rebuild when Brandon Beane got there, they traded everybody. And if you look at the way that San Francisco started things off when John Lynch got there, they traded everybody. And if you look at the way that some of these more sustainable rebuilds have happened, the Detroit Lions, they traded Matthew Stafford, they got all these picks out of it. The sustainable way to start over is to stockpile draft picks, and that's how you get the 12 top 100 draft picks that Chad Brinker referred to last year in a 3-year period. That's how you start kicking off a ball of rolling draft, develop, retain. I do think if the Titans had a marginally more impressive roster and they were able to keep Jeffrey Simmons but trade another 1 or 2 veterans, like if Kevin Byard was still around, if they had held on to him for another year, if some of these other, if DeAndre Hopkins was still around, if they'd held on to him, I think those are the pieces that you probably trade at this point. But none of those guys were around. The Titans didn't have any trade pieces but Jeffrey Simmons. So they were backed into a corner of who do you use as your example? And is it worth having the example, or is it worth having the assets? And they had to make a choice. In a perfect world, they wouldn't have had to make the choice. But in a perfect world, the Titans wouldn't have whiffed on the 2020 and 2021 and 2022 and 2023 and 2024 drafts. They did. They've whiffed on a lot of picks, and they have no internal things that they can sell. So all of that adds up to a team that can't rebuild the functional way. And so, yeah, it feels a little bit like they've got 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door. And that's still them paying for the mistakes of past leadership. And that's them paying for the mistakes that they're making now if this ends up failing. I don't know how to reconcile it.
They haven't made a single move to get more picks. And I mean, like, truly get more picks. And you're
Correct.
talking about all these rebuilds, which have featured teams that have gone out of their way to load up on picks.
Yeah.
To me, they had 2 choices. There was the Cam pick and there was Simmons. And I felt like you had to pick one or the other. Mm-hmm. And they picked neither.
Correct. I think that the Draymond Jones trade might have netted them 1 extra pick, but other than that, yeah.
They 3 picks.
No, I'm just trying to like go through the whole list. I think you're right. I think the last time, like, DeAndre got them a pick when Rand did that trade. Ernest Jones was offsetting because they traded a pick to get him. So yeah, not a lot of extra picks have been acquired.
Right. Like the Jets have said, fuck it. Like, we're just, get us the picks and let's go. And I mean, again, I think that this is all dependent on Cam being Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
And that this 4th pick that they will use is going to be Jamar Chase. And not a receiver but it's going to be that kind of impact player. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. If you look at the 3 models to how to turn from really bad to really good in the NFL, model number 1 is what we're talking about. Trade a bunch of people, develop a bunch of assets, build with a lot of young, cheap talent. Option number 2 is go hire a coach who's a guaranteed success story, whether that was Andy Reid or Sean Payton or somebody who you just know has done it before and can drag you out of hell just because they're really good at their jobs. And number 3 is just get lucky with your quarterback. And the Titans had a position last year where they thought they had a quarterback they liked. And we'll see how good he is. But I'll say it every time I talk to you guys. The entire Tennessee Titans organization rests on the shoulder of Cam Ward being as good as the Titans need him to be. Did they do enough to actually insulate him in year 2? I don't know. We'll see when the draft. It's going to be really tough to say yes based off of how it started. Talk to me on May 1st if they end up doing enough. But this is a team that's entire future rests on Cam Ward, and they haven't helped him a lot.
I mean, I know Taylor Zarzour blew his total load in the booth when they won that Chiefs game about how great it was for the culture. That Chiefs win is disastrous. Because if they had the number 1 pick, they would have traded out of it, and they would have, like, imagine if you had gotten the Jets in on the Mendoza sweepstakes and the Raiders in on the Mendoza sweepstakes and all the teams that need a young quarterback in on a Mendoza sweepstakes and Oh, it's so disastrous. Sinkers Beverages is the presenting sponsor of this program. Braden will be back with PK on Monday. Sus, always good to sit and chat with you. Take care of yourself. And I do think we see it more similarly than not.
No, I think we agree on the outcome. I just don't know if we agree with each other's logic, and that's fun.
And that is fun. 440 Sports, Jared Stillman. I'll be live on my Stillman & Company page at 2 o'clock. Nick Suss, as always, read his stuff in the Tennessean. And thanks to, once again, Sinkers Beverages.